Hey everyone, today we got a really cool new tool for Sketch. It's in the form of a plugin and it's a free download. It's created by the folks over at InVision who make that cool online app where you can link your comps together and make sort of a functional mock-up, but they've created a dedicated plugin that runs within Sketch and it's a free download from their website. You can Google InVision Craft or you can go to labs.invision.com and you can download this. And essentially it's a pretty cool little suite of plugins that allow us to automatically pop in real information, whether it be photos or written information, rather than using super generic placeholder information. And the things that we can pop in, they can be lists that are pre-populated by them, or they could be lists that are on existing web pages, for example, or you could have a folder full of images that were handed off to you, and you can have those automatically get popped into Sketch. So I want to show you guys how some of these things work, because it can save you a ton of time. So the first thing is download the Craft installer, open it up, and in my case, we're just going to install Craft for Sketch. It is that easy. You just click it and it's done. So then we'll open up Sketch. I'm actually going to open up this document here so we can play around. So for example here, and I do have an actual example built out where we can get a little more practical, but just to play around real quick and show you guys the idea. If I have text and I go over here to the text panel, the type panel as they call it, on the type panel, there are different categories of information that I can automatically populate here. So I'm going to left justify this text so that way it expands out to the right. And then I could choose, for example, countries, and boom, it pops in a country. I can click again and again and again if I want to have it regenerate automatically. But then where it gets really cool is if I duplicate this, or if I had a list of information, which right now I don't yet have a list, I can go to the duplicate panel, the second of the three that I want to talk about, and I can duplicate this title into a bunch of titles. So if, for example, a page has a list of names on it or a list of countries on it, rather than typing and typing and typing, I can just say I want a specific number of them. Let's say I want 10 countries, and I want there to be a space of 50 pixels between each one. Now all I have to do is hit duplicate. And because it had automatically generated the country name in the first place, it'll automatically generate each and every country name thereafter. And I could select these layers still, and I could go back over to the type panel where we started, and I could say, you know what, I actually want these to be news headlines instead, and I want them to be technology news headlines. And it will go and it will aggregate some technology news headlines. I could choose currency. It'll automatically put in a dollar amount. So if I'm doing a storefront or something like that, mocking that up, I could say, yes, it's dollars, and I want it to be, let's say, a mid-range price between $0 and $100. So it's that easy. Or in this case, I chose $100 through $1,000. The decimals button does not always work properly for me. Sometimes you have to click on it again. I'm sure that's a bug that they will work out, but it's pretty cool. Another cool thing is if you're generating text, if you're really into this feature and you're not seeing what you're looking for, there are these blank boxes down below. And when you choose add, there are a couple more choices that aren't already on the menu. Animals, for example, time, in terms of like generating timestamps if your mockups call for timestamps. But the cool part is down here where it says add custom action. And I could name this people at work. And if I want to automatically generate the names of people at work that I work with, let's say it's for an internal project and it's for a pitch and you want to use the names of the people you work with, I could type Bob, Sally, Sue, whatever I got to do here, Chad, Brad, Madeline. And then I can hit save, and now I have people at work as a choice. And when I click on that, it'll automatically generate from that list. And because of this, because you can put in whatever you want, you can go on the internet and you can grab a list of really whatever you want. And there's also this web feature, which I'm going to show you in a second when we do our practical example. And that is really cool because you can pull content, written content, straight from a website that is about, say, the same subject matter or has a similar template as what you're trying to follow. So let me dismiss this type stuff for a sec and let's talk about photos because this is where it gets a little bit more fun, I think. Now, if we go to the third of the three, which is the middle one, and again, I know I'm not going in order, we can choose to import photos from a folder, or from a folder on Dropbox. This could be a local folder on your computer or a Dropbox folder. We could also pull from Upsplash or Unsplash rather. Unsplash is a website with a bunch of very, very random photos. To be honest, they're mostly like travel-oriented photos. But if I choose Place Photos, it will reach out to Unsplash and it will automatically import those photos for me. So you can see that it's done that in this box. So let's go back to duplicate so that we can have some fun with this. And let's choose inside selection this time instead of specific count. And for this, we get to say, again, vertical or horizontal, the space that we want to have between them. I'll say 50, which probably won't line up right. You'd want to be a little bit more careful about this than I'm being. And then when I choose duplicate content, it has now made a selection which I can drag. So however far I want to go, I can drag. And then when I let go and hit duplicate content again, it's going to fill that space. It's going to reach out to the internet, and it's going to fill that space with my circle at my size, with my style, and it's going to automatically fill in that circle for me with a photo from Unsplash, which is what I chose as my source. So now let's look at a more practical example, because here I'm just making a mess and I'm showing you what the features are capable of, but let's take a look at it in action. I'm going to go over to the shop composition that I have here, and here we have a group. In this group, it says accessories. It's got a little arrow pointing over here. It's got a stroke at the bottom. It's just basically a line because that line's going to be a separator as we duplicate this down and down and down. So I'm going to choose this. I'm going to go over to duplicate. And over here on duplicate, I'm going to choose specific count. And let's say I want 12 of them. I think 12 fits nicely, and we want 20 pixels in between each one. We'll choose duplicate content, and there we go. We got a bit of a menu going on now, but everything says accessories, which is lame. So I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to click to select all these here on the Layers panel. I'm going to choose Click Through when selecting, so that way the group doesn't behave as a single object. That'll let me get in here and make a selection. And now I'm going to do a little trick where I hold Option and click and drag a rectangular marquee around all these. Because I'm holding Option, it's not going to accidentally select anything that I bump into. It's only going to select what fit inside, completely inside the selection that I made, which is super handy because I didn't want to select all these lines and all that other stuff. I just wanted to get the text. And you could see on the layers list that I made kind of a complex selection. I skipped a bunch of stuff. But by holding Option and dragging, I was able to skip all that in one big swoop. So now let's come back over here and look at our text options. And sure, I could do names, but these are clothing categories for men. I could do headlines, but these are clothing categories for men. So none of these things here really apply. None of these represent clothing categories. What really represents clothing categories are clothing categories. There's no substitute. There's nothing else that's going to make sense here. So we can go to the Web tab. This is where it gets really interesting. I can go to the Web tab. I can go to Nordstrom.com, for example. And on Nordstrom.com, there is a men's section, which is perfect because we are working on a men's section here. And when you're working in this panel, just so you guys know, you have to hold Command to click a link. If you're trying to click a link for the sake of navigating, you have to hold Command when you click. Because to click without holding Command, you're selecting what to auto-populate the text with. So here we have a list. And in web terms, this could be an ordered list or an unordered list. All these headings match. And in the HTML, this is all cohesive. This is together as a list. Now, this tool understands that this stuff is together as a list. And I've been all over the internet, and it does a damn good job. No matter where you go and no matter what you click on, it does a good job of figuring out that news headlines are news headlines, that subheadlines are subheadlines, and here it understands that this is a list and that that list stays together. So when I click the first item on the list, boom, it just auto-filled all the categories for men's clothing. All I had to do is go to Nordstrom.com and click on one item, and it fills the rest. So I just saved a heck of a lot of time. That's really cool. Now let's go over here and look at this. We've got a group over here that's going to show a product photo. It's going to show the name of an item, and it's going to show the price of that item. So I'm going to click twice because this is a group, and clicking once selects the group. Clicking twice clicks me inside the group. So let me double click. There we go. And I'm going to choose item name, and I don't really have a list of item names. I don't have a cool trick up my sleeve here. For the item names, I'm just going to add a category. I'm going to add animals because for some reason when you choose cat names oddly turn out pretty similar to clothing names. I'm no expert in naming clothing, but cat names and clothing names tend to line up a bit with certain brands. So now that I've done that, I've got one piece of metadata, so to speak, taken care of. Now I'm going to choose my price. I'm going to go and I'm going to say I want to fill that with currency. I want that currency to be 0 through 99, and it's respecting that I don't want a decimal point this time, so that's kind of a done deal. And this doesn't need to be accurate. I'm just trying to do a mock-up, and the mock-up needs to show a 2-digit price, it needs to show a product name, and it needs to show the product itself. And I've got a folder this time, and my folder has pictures of coats in it. So I'm going to go to the Photo tab here, and I'm going to go and choose Folder. And the folder that I'm going to choose is on my desktop. It's called Coats. And I'll hit Open and Place Photos. Now, it's only done one photo because I only have one box for it to fill. But again, remember the second thing that we talked about was the duplicate option. So I'm going to select the group, the whole group. So I clicked away and clicked back on it to select the group. I'm going to go back to my Duplicate tab. And vertically, I think this time I only want about 8 of them. And I'm going to do a gutter of about 50. Now it's going to remember that I have the photos being pulled from a folder, the names being pulled from cat names, and the dollar amounts being pulled from 2-digit dollar amounts. Dollars being dollars and not pounds or the euro. You can put in whatever symbol you want. They could be rupees if you want, whatever you want. So we can choose duplicate content now, and it remembers all that stuff, and boom, it automatically fills them all in, and in this case, grabs the different coats from the folder. It automatically grabs everything that we need. In this case, it did grab the same coat twice, but again, I can click. I can go back to my Photos tab, and I can choose Place Photos again, and it will automatically regenerate a random one. And I didn't have very many in that folder, so the odds of it picking the same one twice, actually good odds that it's going to accidentally pick the same one twice. It's not very careful. I don't think it's aware of duplicates. I don't think it makes any attempt to avoid duplicates, so you end up with duplicates quite frequently when you're working with a small sample of data. But just know that you can pull text from these presets or from the web. I think the web feature is going to be a lesser understood feature, and it's really, really fantastic, and I hope a lot of people use that. And then we also have the photos from a folder so that you can work with controlled content and not just pull random stuff from Unsplash. But if you want to pull random stuff from Unsplash, you may. And then from the web here, you can choose to pull an individual photo, but that's if you want to do one photo at a time, which I usually don't. So I really like the folder option. I think you're better off going to Safari or your web browser and pulling a bunch of pictures into a folder first, and then coming here and choosing to populate from that folder. And then, of course, duplicate. Duplicate is super cool, saves a ton of time, and respects the choices that you've made in these other two tabs before, during, and after you use the duplicate function. So hopefully you guys like this. Hopefully you guys like this tutorial. If you do, I have a link down below for you guys to get a gigantic discount off of my course on Udemy. And subscribe if you haven't already, because I've got more cool stuff coming.